This judge has just been sentenced to prison. Welcome back, Charlie here. Courtrooms are some of the most dramatic places in the world, normally because of the criminals freaking out. But today you're going to see times when judges went wild in court. First, we have to look at this judge who was sentenced to prison, and who had to be dragged out of court. When this judge was sentenced by another judge to prison time, chaos broke out in this court in Ohio. The convicted judge named Tracy Hunter had to be removed from court by cops. She tried to lie on the floor to avoid getting taken to jail, and so literally had to be dragged out of the room. In 2014, Tracy Hunter was convicted of misusing her position as a judge. This was to help her very own brother. Her brother had been facing an employment dispute over his job, so Tracy got involved to help her brother out. Lots of people said this judge was totally innocent, and she was simply trying to help out her own brother. But clearly no one is above the law, not even judges. Tracy submitted many appeals, and protesters at her trial were even arrested. But it was found Tracy did actually break the law, so was sentenced to 6 months in jail. After this, she actually took legal action against the cops who dragged her away, claiming she was injured as they were dragging her. The sheriff is now investigating her claim. Next, we have to look at this grabby judge. This judge from Ohio was forced to resign. This was after being out of order in his own courtroom. This judge was in the middle of a trial. That's when he heard a commotion out in the hallway. It was a woman screaming. That's because she was told she was 30 minutes late to file court papers. The judge chases after the woman, and then orders her to go back to his courtroom. The judge also grabs this woman on the shoulder, steering her into the courtroom. Many people criticized this judge. They said he was acting like a judge, bailiff, and sheriff all rolled into one. The judge sits the woman down in the jury box, and then sentences her to 3 days in jail. This was for being disrespectful and disruptive of his case. But the woman simply wasn't having it. She tried to walk away as the case had nothing to do with her, and she had no idea it was going on when she was screaming. But she is then detained by cops and taken to jail. The judge, Michael Bachman, was heavily criticized for this. He was also a contestant on The Price is Right a few years back. He lost on the game show, and after this incident also lost his job. He was forced to resign after being out of order in his own court. As for the woman, Cassandra Jackson, who was sentenced to 3 days in jail, she was actually released by another judge after only 2 days. Moving along, we have to look at this angry judge who told someone, "I hope you die in prison." This is one of the most dramatic judge meltdowns I've ever seen. Camilla Gammett had just been found guilty of murdering her boyfriend Marcel Hill. She was given a life sentence by Judge John McBain. John McBain said she was one of the worst, cold-blooded murderers he'd ever seen. During the sentencing, Marcel Hill's family members spoke about how losing him affected them. Camilla Gammett could be seen rolling her eyes and laughing, and at one point interrupted Marcel Hill's aunt, saying, "Is that it?" At one point, the judge had enough. He said, "You're going to shut your mouth or I'm going to get some duct tape and put it on you.
And you're going to shut your mouth or I'm going to have some duct tape put on it."
You were relentless. You stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed until he was dead.
You gutted him like a fish in that apartment too. You were relentless. You stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed until he was dead.
And the judge isn't exaggerating here. Camilla used a knife on Marcel 11 times. Camilla kept being disrespectful, and this made the judge even more angry. At one point saying, "I hope you die in prison. If this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair."
I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well. You know, if this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair.
Thankfully, Camilla was sentenced to life in prison, and that's where she remains to this day. Some said this judge's meltdown was too far, but considering Camilla was so rude and even mocked her victim's family, maybe it was justified. Next, we have to look at this angry judge who gave a 120-year sentence. This is Matthew Hastings. He's been convicted of various crimes, including 4 counts of attempted murder and 2 counts of second-degree assault. During a 20-hour standoff with Washington police, he shot a SWAT team officer, seriously wounding the cop. He was in trial with Judge John Woolley, who sentenced him to 120 years behind bars. But that's when the judge and the convict have a very sassy exchange. The judge asks him if he graduated from high school, and that's when Matthew gets very offended.
Mr. Hastings, did you graduate from high school, sir?
No.
After Matthew keeps interrupting, the judge tells him to shut his damn mouth, and even threatens to have him gagged.
I don't really want
want to care why, just get on with
You
the
shut
sentencing.
your mouth, sir.
Oh, I'm not going to shut my mouth.
Next time, I'm going to have you gagged.
You're going to have me gagged, huh?
You're right, I am.
Have me gagged, then.
Even after Matthew was sentenced to 120 years, he kept being rude to the judge, and the judge was being rude back.
I am accepting the state's recommendation.
Good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Afterwards, the judge did actually apologize, but maybe it was justified in this case. At one point, Matthew even seems to threaten the judge. He says, "We know how to handle kids like you, son."
Bye-bye. We know how to handle kids like you, son.
Even the cops seem shocked when he says that. Or maybe he was simply trying not to laugh. After this, the judge was actually reprimanded, but Matthew is still in prison serving his 120-year sentence. Next, we have to look at this judge who put tape on a convict's mouth. In 2018, Franklin Williams appeared in court. He was facing charges for robbery and kidnapping. But throughout the entire trial, Franklin would not stop talking, causing the judge to yell at him, telling him to shut his mouth.
Shut your mouth, and I'll tell you when you can talk. You got it?
But after Franklin Williams kept interrupting, Judge John Russo decided to take drastic action, telling court cops to put tape over the defendant's mouth. Franklin was very annoyed by this, and began shouting out freedom of speech. That's right, even through the tape he kept on talking. The judge was severely criticized for this. Eventually, the judge apologized and recused himself from the case. But Franklin Williams was still sentenced for his crimes. Now let's look at this shouting judge who gave someone the maximum sentence. This is Levon Turrentine. He was in court for taking a boy's life. He had been dangerously driving, and sadly took the life of 8-year-old Toonami Filbert. He was temporarily released under the condition he wouldn't drive, but was arrested after driving the same vehicle used in the accident. This caused the judge to be very angry.
One bad decision after the another. You didn't learn anything. You violated the law again by driving the same car.
Levon looked very upset, but tried to say he was only driving to get him and his kids something to eat. But the judge was having none of it and gave him the max sentence. This was 7 years behind bars. Finally, let's look at this judge who got mad at a lying cop. One day in Florida, Lisette Gonzalez was in court. This was for driving under the influence. During the trial, it was revealed Lisette was never given a breathalyzer test, despite cops saying she had been tested. Officer Michael Wagner said she had tested above the legal limit, even when no tests had been carried out. The judge is super annoyed at the cop lying about her being tested, and began shouting and banging his desk. The judge dismisses the entire case, and then begins to scold the prosecutor and also the cops. The judge acquits Lisette on the spot, and tells the prosecutor that if you want to appeal me, eventually saying the case should have never gone to court.
Appeal me? No.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Case should have never been done. Never.
Thank you for letting us know that, Your Honor.
Lisette leaves the courtroom free of all charges. Now it's time to make your voice heard. Comment down below, do you think any of these judges took things too far or not? If you want to see my short videos, check out my second channel. I've been Charlie, thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, then what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.